Welcome back, everybody, to the Matt Lab podcast, episode 4. And today I am joined by Myles Washington. Also, side note, Myles, a first podcast episode in the new apartment. If anyone actually watches this, they'll see that it's a different background. So that's a little award for you. You get to be the first one in the new location.
Right.
But Myles, thanks for joining me today. And as the host of the show, it's my honor to welcome you in. A man who needs no introduction, but I'll give it my best shot. Myles has begun to work his way up in the sports industry, beginning working a student job with an NCAA college basketball program, Division One, before finding himself in a prime position with a G League affiliate for one of the most historic franchises in the NBA. And he's had different stops along the way within the association, particularly on the social and digital side. And we're going to get all into that. And I'm very grateful to have him with me. Myles, thank you and welcome in.
Thank you, Matt, for having me here. I'm looking forward to talking to you and, seeing what you're all about and telling the world what I've done in my sports career so far.
Yeah. Let's get right into it. You first began, I would say, your first experience in the sports world was student basketball manager at West Virginia University, one of the more prevalent basketball programs in the country, playing in the Big 12 conference. What memories are etched in your brain, the most particularly maybe coming from those back-to-back Sweet 16 runs in 2017 and 2018?
Most memorable was just seeing the level of play. Coming from an area where sports, especially basketball, is prevalent in the Washington, D.C. area, I thought I saw like the epitome of just the constant athletes, collegiately and professionally, that came out from the area. But seeing a style of play with the Big 12 being the background where we played in, Coach Huggins was a great leader in the sense of like just teaching the game of basketball and learning from some of the best players that were constantly going to the tournament, making it to the Sweet 16. My knowledge of the game grew very quickly. And especially since I was a manager, we had to obviously rebound for the guys and be around them all the time. But that helped elevate a whole lot of things. So memorable wise, I would say definitely that my freshman year, that was the 2017-18 year, the Sweet 16. And then all the way up until even like my sophomore year, we weren't that great. But then we had that Big 12 tournament run that nobody
Mhm.
expected, and then that led into like my senior year post COVID, where I actually got to go to the tournament, NCAA tournament in Indianapolis, and we made it to the second round, lost to Syracuse. But um, it was just amazing. And then taking that college game to overseas to Spain, going into my junior year, that was amazing to see the different level of play.
Yeah, there's something so special about March Madness, the NCAA tournament. Like you talked about, I mean, you said it happened in your conference tournament, going on a run that, people didn't think you could go on. Throughout those experiences, being on or being a part of programs with different levels of talent, what like specific things about the game do you think help teams in March Madness the best? Is it just having pure scorers, pure defenders, or is it more the things that don't show up on the stat sheet?
Um, Honestly, college game is already slow as is to
Hmm.
some degree, but it really comes down to the want come tournament time because you got to execute. That's the obvious, but the guys that just want it, they don't look at a team that might be lesser of them. If they're the higher seed, you're playing a lower seed team, or even the other way around, where you feel like a lower seed, you don't just cave in because they're a higher seed. Within Big 12 conference play over my 3 4 years there. And, the tournament time, especially my senior year, like being in a bubble, it was weird. I felt like an AAU tournament, how we were younger. And you see all the teams, you see all the players, all the coaches. And you would hear some of the bigger teams in the higher seeds saying, hey, we have this matchup. Like, we're the 3 seed. We're going to beat, the lower seeding and stuff like that. And then a lot of those teams were like gone the first day. And then you see them
Right.
walk around the hotel and the convention center all like confused and stuff. And it's like you have to have that respect for your opponent, no matter where they come from, what their roster looks like, the type of play they have. So it was definitely different. But I would say it's just a pure want and will
Hmm.
that you have to win. That's what makes March Madness so great because when you have those teams that have the mutual respect for each other and they're both going at it, you have those amazing moments that a lot of people cherish about the tournament.
Yeah, and I think a factor that helped, you guys be one of those tougher teams in the tournaments was head coach Bob Huggins, who you talked about. He actually started as an assistant at West Virginia at the beginning of his career, jumped around a bunch of places, then found himself back with the Mountaineers for 16 years. Um, as someone himself who's kind of working his way up the tree in the sports industry, what's the lessons you've taken from him as a coach who's had that experience of having all those pit stops before getting where you want to be?
What I learned from him the most, especially as I was on my way out and graduating, was that you just have to it's a lot of sacrifice. And like over the years, being away from family during that time as a manager, I'll probably only get to see my family 15 days out of the year. Uh,
Mhm.
Especially after my freshman year, I was just once I became living on campus full time, and once I became a head manager my junior year, my last 2 years especially, um, it was just like all go. There was no stopping. And he even said like, "Because I understand you don't get to see your family and stuff," but he was like, "You signed up for it." And I didn't really. It's obviously I miss my family and friends and stuff, but he was like, "If you want to get to where you want to be at the rate you want to get there, you got to. It comes with sacrifice and just having a passion for it. Like you're not going to get anywhere or expect yourself to be somewhere if you don't have the passion for it. Like you got to love it. And for me, out of all the hours, days, and no matter how fast time felt or how slow it felt, I never felt like a job for me because I
Mhm.
enjoy basketball as a passion of mine. Like can't live without it. One of his former assistant coaches, Larry Harrison, who was my mentor when I was there, like my close mentor for me within the organization, was it was between med school and basketball for me. Those were the two toss ups, and he saw how much I put into my time academically, but also how much I put into basketball. And he was like, "Hey, I'm gonna give you a choice. Like, you gotta pick one or the other because you're gonna drain yourself trying to balance both and commit to each one." But he's like, "Which one can't you live without, medicine or basketball?" And I was like, "Basketball." So that's when he just put me on a fast track. He's like, "All right, like, drop your med classes. You're gonna focus on basketball. Take some more sports classes, but I'm gonna put you around the right people in the league, introduce you and stuff like that." So him alongside Coach Huggins, they both just kind of fast tracked me. It was like, "Hey, we see you have a passion for it, but we're going to help you get there." So along with that help, it helped tremendously get to where I'm at today, and just meeting with people. And networking is one of the biggest things in the business
Mhm.
as you go along.
Yeah. Is I found online Coach Huggins' nickname is Huggy Bear. Is that accurate?
Yes, it is.
Did you feel that? Did you feel that energy around him? Because sometimes as a fan on TV, he's kind of an intimidating guy.
Yeah, yeah. It's funny because everybody that's ever known that I've worked there as a manager, been around them, is always like, that's the first question. It's like, "Oh, you work there, cool, cool." Like, is Hugs really like as crazy as he seems on TV? I'm like, no, he's actually like his nickname is to who he is within the lines of 94 by 55. Like, he's that guy that you see on TV. But
Mhm.
outside of that, no, he's a great person. Always looked out for other people. His like you said, his nickname spoke to who he was off the court, and even like on the court, as fierce as he was, it came from a place of compassion and care
Right.
for everybody in the program, players to staff. So it definitely his nickname embodies who he is.
Yeah, that's amazing. And you kind of touched on it briefly, talking about like that time away from your family. And I can relate to this, like working for like big collegiate teams. On the surface, it could seem like amazing experience, really fun. Um, but it could really be a grind. And a student manager role specifically, it's like you're there just as much as the players, but you're not always in that spotlight. And you touched on it briefly, so if it's the same answer, feel free to elaborate. But what were some of the biggest difficulties operating as both a student and a manager of a Big 12 conference basketball program?
Honestly, just trying to find balance in life and time
Mhm.
because it all depends. Like we had one of the bigger manager staffs across the board in the entire country. I think on average, probably my 4 years there, we had at least 16 managers. Some schools only had five, some only had like 10.
16 a
But
year?
yeah, on average, about because
Oh,
I know my
wow.
freshman year we had 20, my sophomore year we had about 20, and then as the season went on, because that was just a rough season for us, some guys like left, some got fired, but and then we replenished come my junior and senior year, uh, and then junior year some guys left because of COVID, so that was kind of tricky. Some guys were like, we
Mhm.
don't want to jeopardize the players because we had to go out or whatever. So, but on average, I think we had about 16. But it was really just about the balance of your social life, especially being at West Virginia, is known as one of the bigger party schools in the country. So you have to balance, okay, how am I going to go out but represent myself well? And on top of that, yeah, keep up your grades, but you also represent the basketball program because
Mm.
in a sense where like you don't get the spotlight that player gets, you kind of get the celebrity feel. Like it's not like high school. Like for me, I was a manager in high school too for multiple sports. At times you get praised for it, sometimes you get teased for it. But in college, it was like straight praise. It wasn't nothing like weren't called the nicknames that were like demeaning in that sense. Like it was like, oh my god, you're like the coolest person because you do something that's outside of like playing that sport. So
Hmm.
um, it was definitely just a balancing the life, but also once you figure out where that balance is, like you commit for to basketball or academically. Obviously, you want to have both because in order to be a manager, you have to have your grades up and whatnot.
Right.
Um, but for everybody, it was a little different. We had some guys that just did their bare minimum job, and that was great. That's what we needed them for. And there was some guys like myself and a few others, especially my graduating class. We just went above and beyond. So it was always like competitive, but in the sense that like everybody had a specific role that benefited the whole team and program. So that was probably just the toughest part, just balancing life, especially being at a big party school. It's like, okay, can I go out tonight? You know, we have 6 a.m. conditioning. It's like, probably not. So you just kind of
Hmm.
like dial it back and then, trying to find the time to do your academics as well. But I'd be on a bus, on a plane. Um, when we were traveling, us managers, we had to be up to like 2, 3 a.m. in the hallways, like
Oh,
just making sure players just weren't doing anything dumb in hotels and stuff. So like usually we travel with 5 managers. We all just sit there in the hallway together, like knocking out a bunch of exams, homework, quizzes, whatever we
wow.
needed to do. So we always found time when we could. Usually it was always easier when we were traveling because we were forced to not do anything. We couldn't drive the bus. We obviously couldn't fly the plane. And the hotel, you're just sitting there. So
Yeah.
uh, that was always the easier time. But yeah, it was just the balance of it was probably the toughest part. But that also kind of prepared you for life and what could come next, depending on what you wanted to do.
100%. Last question about West Virginia. You on your best day, Javon Carter on his worst day. Game to 21. What's the score?
Me on my best day, I don't know. That's a two-time defensive player of the year out of the entire country at the guard position too. Because a lot of times guards don't get the love that I think they deserve at the defensive position. So
Hmm.
I don't know. 21, I'll have respect for him. I think he'll definitely beat me, but I think I could probably
Yeah.
get up a cool maybe 6 points probably.
All right.
Just
That's light.
like
That's good.
wearing them down a little bit, depending on
Ones and
what the
twos,
rules are.
though? Ones and
Yeah,
twos?
ones and twos.
All right.
We're about the same height, so that'll probably give me a little bit of advantage of that. It's not too much of a discretion, but no, he definitely would get that as a two-time defensive player of the year that I have mad respect for.
All right. Javon, in case you ever hear this, which I know you never will, just Miles Washington's coming for you. Um, let's jump into the NBA now. You joined the NBA as a production trainee back in 2021. You've worked your way up a bunch of different roles. But my question is, what was the hardest adjustment for when you started working for one of the biggest leagues in the world?
The hardest adjustment was honestly the kind of basketball I was used to. It went from the daily grind of physically being present in a situation, so like the running around, the rebounding, the waking up early, staying up late, being on call to a coach or a player at any given moment to the fact where I started working 2 weeks post graduation in the NBA. And it was also that weird COVID time. So like everybody was working from home. So trying to meet people that way, figure out what
Hmm.
my role is within, my department and stuff. That was the toughest part. But even though I was still kind of busy, it wasn't like a physical busy kind of schedule. So like I had to adjust and adapt to that. Because me, I was just like always on go. My mind was on go. My body was physically built, in my opinion, to just be on the move all the time and physically be active. So that was probably the toughest part. Was just physically and mentally. How do I like adjust to one COVID being a big factor in like sitting us at home and forcing us to work for a few months before I moved up
Hmm.
to the New Jersey area closer to the office. And then, yeah, just kind of figuring that out. And also just the type of basketball. Like it wasn't talking about basketball. It was social and digital. So it's like, what do you, my brain's wired to like the X's and O's, but where I was working, it was wired to the aesthetics. So it's like, okay,
Right.
for me, like I see all the little nuanced details. Everybody else just kind of sees the glam, and like for me, like at times it was frustrating, but I was like, okay, I gotta cater to what my job is right now because I can't be like, oh no, this move is great and it looks so simple, but to the average person, it's like, okay, well, what's special about that? For me, it's like, oh, that fundamental move was amazing, but like people want to see the dunk, the crossovers, and so forth. So just kind of changed my mindset from being physically active and then from X's and O's to like more aesthetic. pleasing
Mhm.
for the whole world to enjoy.
Are you a fan of Derek White then, if you like fundamental stuff? Because he feels like
Yeah,
Mr. Fundamental.
yeah. Big fan of Derek White. I love his defense and his tenacity and stuff. And seeing like a guy like that, come up in the ranks because I always appreciate, like I said, the underdog. It's kind of cliche to some extent, but I'm a guard myself, so
Mhm.
I would give high praise to any guards and wings, especially defensively, because those kind of get overlooked a lot in basketball in general. In my opinion, it's not too hard to be a 7 footer and block shots when the guard gets beat. You kind of just stand there, but a guy that can defend on the perimeter and multiple positions on any given night have to guard the best player I have a lot of respect for. So like a Derek White, it's always fun to watch, and he plays the game at his own pace and knows what his
Mhm.
role is. So I like watching Derek White.
Yeah, he's a fan. He's a fan favorite over here.
Mm,
And you were talking about some stuff that's pretty good, or a good segue for my next question, about the glam and things. You worked as a content creator
mm,
for a year before you transitioned to your current role, but in the age of social media, takedown of players everywhere, ESPN talking heads and this clickbait titles all over the place, and it makes me
mm.
sometimes wonder like how much these people even like basketball. But
Right.
how dedicated were you guys in the NBA? How dedicated were you to producing quality content with the intent to highlight the game in a respectful way?
It was definitely tough because you have the companies that you compete against that don't have the boundaries that we have. Like we work on a tight boundary. Like we can't grab clips with certain music because obviously the league has to pay for that and
Mhm.
get sued for or whatever the case may be compared to the House of Highlights, Bleacher Report, ESPN, where they have the rights to certain things or just a bigger picture that they can just attack with. Or like I said, the clickbait is just like they grab whatever and post it. For us, it was like we got to highlight our players. We got to highlight our league at the most positive way that we can. And also just finding like the little nuances to like the casual fan, because the biggest thing that we tried to work on, at least while I was there, was how do we pull the casual fan that only tunes in on Christmas Day to
Mm.
tune in sent from the beginning of October, or the casual fan that only tunes in to April when playoffs start. How do we get them to maybe tune in starting at All Star break when the season is really winding down on top of the playoffs? So we tried to find ways like that to um, gravitate towards everybody. And in a sense, like one of the things I took pride in while I was there was because I had the X's and O's mentality and where I came from, I was able to see like little nuances. And as my time there, I can create like highlight clips or tell my bosses uh, that like, hey, this player does this certain move a lot. Like maybe we should put a compilation together because it's gonna attract other people. To be like, oh, like now we're learning the game from the NBA, but also it's kind of cool. So like one of the things I mentioned back when I was working there was a certain move Luca did was like his pivoting and the way he stepped through is somebody we haven't seen somebody do that since like Kobe at the time. So um, things like that kind of you start to figure out, like I said, combining my X's and O's thoughts to the aesthetics, but also how we could expand the league. It was fun to do it because at that point we also started to get dunks are dunks at the end of the day. The posters are going to happen. Those are always going to be the biggest highlights, but there's little nuances to the game like Derek White's of the world and so forth that do big time things such as the block he had the other night where that's a big
Crazy.
time play in the finals, right? This the last time we seen a block like that was probably what LeBron on Iguodala in some resemblance to some degree. Obviously not in the
Mhm.
biggest stakes of at the point in the series that it was in, but
Yeah,
in
LeBron's
similarities.
LeBron's wasn't as good as D Wood. No, I'm joking.
But just seeing like stuff like that where like you see the league highlighting that and showing different angles and stuff like those are the things that I enjoy doing the most at the league, where you can find the little things that stuck out and hopefully people like it. If not, it's a test and trial kind of situation. If it doesn't work, you get away from it. We're gonna have 50 more posts that's gonna drown that one post and nobody will think about it again. So
Yeah.
it was cool to be a content creator. I was blessed and fortunate to have that opportunity to do that and be on the creative side. So what was going on social every night, pretty much on every game day.
Yeah. As a social media consumer, like you sometimes don't realize, like if I wake up early morning or late at night and I'm scrolling, and I see content, for me, I'm just enjoying it. But there's someone on the other side of the screen who's editing that, clipping that, producing that, putting it out. It's a
Mm-hmm.
role that goes well beyond the 9 to 5 title, I imagine. How is that workload managed?
It was definitely tough because for me, in a sense, when I say tough in generality for everybody that worked in the league alongside myself and that team of content creators and just the content department, you don't work the normal 9 to 5. You don't even work what you think we call like a night or evening shift. It could go from anytime. I start working at 6 in the afternoon till 2 or 3 in the morning, depending on what game coverage you have. If you have a West Coast game, you have the game itself, and then if it's like on a TNT, you got to cover all of that broadcast, all the
Hmm.
post game pressers that can go until 3 in the morning when you're on the East Coast. So it's always tough in that sense. But like for me, given my background, being like on an on call type of environment I was in at West Virginia and stuff, it wasn't too bad, but you definitely sacrifice a little bit of your social life, especially when it comes to the weekends and being like up late covering games and stuff like that. But it honestly wasn't too bad because, in a sense, you have your mornings and afternoons free. So it's like you kind of, in a sense, where we worked in the social world, it was like, yeah, we give up our nights and evenings and stuff like that. But if you can find like a hobby or a passion of yours that you can do during the mornings and the afternoons, you have that time of day too. It wasn't like a 24-hour job. It was just mostly
Hmm.
at night. So, but it was definitely a big team of people that have no idea who actually does it. When people run into me and it's like, "Oh, you're the person that like helped clip that IG post." I'm like, "Yeah, like I just, my boss was like, "Hey, grab this clip." I grab it, maybe a couple angles, send it off to the publishers, and the publishers do whatever other magic they want to do to it.
Yep.
Um, so it was always cool, especially like League Pass. People thought that's all like automated, and obviously got AI today, but like really no, it's all human intuition that's on the other side of the screen. So that's why people are like, oh, my screen just went black. It could be very much so that myself or somebody else messed up and went to the wrong angle. It could be the truck on site. It could be obviously a broadcast issue, but a lot of times everything is man powered, and so it's always cool to be like, yeah, no, I'm the one that like is clicking their league pass. I'm the one bouncing around the camera angles. You can see the in arena feed that we have and stuff like that. So it was a cool time being in the league, and that always made things more worthwhile. That you had the creative freedom and liberties to have your own touch on whatever game you were assigned for the night.
Yeah, definitely got the coolest job in the room, pretty much whatever room you go into. But let's jump into your current role now. You're currently a basketball operations associate with the Westchester Knicks, which is the G League affiliate of the New York Knicks. First off, break down for me exactly what a basketball operations associate entails.
Short story, it's like being a manager all over again.
There you
Um,
go.
honestly, so for me, it's
Got
not
back to the X's and
too
O's.
right. So it wasn't all that different, but it was definitely it's still a little shock. I spent 2.5 years at the league office, and to the point, even when I was on my way out, my last 9 months or so, 9, 10 months, I started traveling with the league. So I started working events at All Star. Went to Egypt for the BAL, Abu Dhabi for the Abu Dhabi games with the Mavericks and in Minnesota. So I started traveling live, Hall of Fame and everything, draft. So when it transitioned, I was kind of in that complete entertainment mindset. But transitioning back to the ops, it was like I was like, oh, this is like what I did for 8 years of my life when I was younger. It's just being a manager again for a team. Now you're just at the professional level at the best league in the world. So it wasn't all too different. There's some little things that are like different when you have to cater to professional athletes in a professional organization, but in a sense, it's basically like being a manager. So for me, it's just like doing the laundry for the team. Picking up players from our hotel, not hotel, the apartment complex that we all lived in. Make sure that they get to their appointments, whether that's medical or anything like that. Get to the gym. It came to obviously game day prep and setup at the arenas, whether home or away, setting up the locker rooms. But the cool thing about our position, I could speak to the other 58 positions that the other teams have and carry for themselves around the league is you get to cater to what you want to do to some degree. So like for me, my focus is coaching. I love obviously X's and O's. I love player development and coaching. So you have that opportunity to really dive in to that part of what you want to do in your career long term, if that's what you want to do. There's some people that the other associate might be front office driven. I know we have a guy on our staff, Brandon Wiseman. He was in my role the year before, and he was the manager at West Virginia. And
Oh, awesome.
so but he's more front office guy. He's like he can do the on court stuff, but he likes the GM side of things. So it's like for him,
Mm,
he went in his time at the associate role. He did everything I did. We obviously both come from manager backgrounds, but he was more like hanging around the GM, the president of ops, and stuff like that. And for myself, I was around those guys kind of, but I was with the coaching staff all the time. So that's the cool thing. It's like, if you don't mind the dirty work, the grimy work at times, where it goes unnoticed or even unappreciated at times, where you feel like it's not appreciated, but it keeps the functionality of the organization going. It's rewarding when you can dive into what you actually have a passion for, which for me was coaching.
yeah. I was gonna ask, are there any differences between the G League and the NBA and the experience you've had with the NBA?
Um, any differences? Not too much. Obviously the difference is that these guys are professional athletes. Even with young, you have some guys that are young, but in a sense, they're still like some of the guys are older, mid to late 20s. So in that sense, it's not like you're with peers because I'm on the younger side. So like in the sense that age wise, they're my peers, but the word professional goes all the way through to how they carry themselves. So like they know what to do, they know where they need to be compared to collegiately. It's like they're my peers. I had to be I had to be above my age at times, like make sure players were like on time for certain things. Like same thing where my role is making sure the players get there, but they do their other end of it. It's like, okay, I'm gonna come down to the van on time so I can get here, or I'm gonna communicate with you if I need something. So in that sense, I would say that's the biggest difference is that the maturity level that you're dealing with certain guys, and even in college, like you could tell the pro guys from the guys that were just around, like the
Mhm.
Javon Carters, the Miles McBrides, like those two guys, you can tell from when I set foot there, obviously Javon was on his way out, but Deuce came in to my last 2 years. Like you just get that sense like, oh, these guys are pros. And obviously those are the two guys out of our program the last few years that have stuck in the league the longest. Um, so it's a whole different ball game when you're around certain people. Like they just have this focus that they're going to get to where they want to be. So that makes your job a little bit easier in a sense. And it's almost like you work together more so in the position I am today.
Cooler trip, United Arab Emirates or Egypt?
Uh, I don't know. I would say Abu Dhabi was cool because never would I have thought the Minnesota Timberwolves and Dallas Mavericks were going to be the Western Conference Finals for this year. So
Oh,
like seeing
yeah.
that in the preseason, getting to see Kyrie, Luca up close, Anthony Edwards up close, it's like, oh, okay, this is really cool. Like, I've seen a handful of NBA guys up close and in person, but at that time, obviously, way back in October, you're not, oh, these two teams most likely aren't going to make it to the conference finals. But then when that happens, it's like, oh, like I saw this stuff early on. It's like you can see glimpses of why each team was so great and they got to where they were. But like I said, you don't think of anything of it. Egypt was cool because obviously the pyramids, got to go see the pyramids and stuff.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
So that was cool and just like a surreal feeling that, able to walk up and touch the pyramids and just kind of understand the culture and the history that comes along with Egypt and Cairo. Um, I would say I would say maybe Egypt was a little more special because of the Basketball Africa League,
Mm.
which is like newer league that the NBA has branched off to the last 4 years. I want to say, yeah, this is season 4 that just passed. So um, that was special because we're tapping into, like I said, what I spoke about earlier was trying to encapsulate the casual fan. Even other parts of the world, obviously Africa is a continent where they have basketball players. Some of the best basketball players ever to play the game come from Africa, but it's a soccer or football, depending where you come from, driven sport, right?
Mm.
So all of them play soccer slash football their whole lives growing up. There's multiple NBA players that play soccer up to their 15 and they just grew up to be 6'8", and it's like, okay, I don't know if you can be a 6'8" soccer or football player, but you could be quite useful on the basketball court.
Pascal
So
Siakam, right?
right, and a bunch of even guys we had at West Virginia that come from Africa were great soccer players, and but they
That's
transitioned to
crazy.
basketball late because they just had crazy growth spurts, so their body types were like the perfect basketball body type, and football or soccer just didn't fit them anymore. It's like
Mhm.
you really don't. There's no really skill set or place for you on the field, but on the court, there's a big part of where you can play. So I would say that was special because I was also the one spearheading the content there. So anything from the state side of it, helping out anybody that was on site in Africa at the time before I went over there. Um, I was like the guy clipping all the stuff that was on social. So if you go to the Basketball Africa League social page, obviously this, well, not this past season because I was working with the Knicks and everything, but in the 2 years previously, anything, I would say about 70% of the clips on there were coming from my end and helping, explore that league, grow the league and stuff. So I think that has a special place in my heart, trying to help them. And it's just it feels like the competition level there felt like March Madness. Doesn't matter who
Mm.
you are, where you come from, those guys just poured out all into the court and just want to hoop, and they're competing for their version of the NBA Finals and championship out there. So I would probably say Egypt, and working at the BAL. I was out there for 2 weeks on my own. Basically, I didn't really know anybody going into there. I obviously became close with their content team and the staffs over in the BAL as my time went on there. But I think that has a bigger place in my heart and a special trip, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, the NBA is so massive. It's growing so much. Adam Silver even came out recently and said, they're looking at potential expansion teams within our own
Mm-hmm.
borders. So it's definitely an exciting time to be a part of the NBA. But
Mm-hmm.
we got just under 7 minutes left. Miles, let's talk about something that I don't think you thought I would bring up today. I have heard through the grapevine you're a massive movie guy. Okay.
Yeah.
And as an avid movie fan myself, can you please explain why going to the theater is the optimal way to take in a new release?
It's a different feeling. I'm also a big movie guy where I go by myself. Like I have no advertising here. Maybe they can help sponsor your show down the line. But AMC is my favorite theater to go to. I
Because
have
they
an
got that
AMC.
monthly pass, but there's none.
Exactly.
There's no AMC's near me. It's
Yeah.
so frustrating. It's so
Yeah.
frustrating.
I have to travel a little bit, about 20, 25 minutes to get to the closest theater driving wise. But I go to the movie so much where I was like, why spend $20 per ticket when I could spend 25 on a month and go as many times as I want? So, but going to the movies in person, it's just a different feeling, especially when it's something that you're either anticipating for months or years. It's a different feeling where you can get your favorite snack, drink, whatever the case may be, and you can, if hopefully find your prime seating in the theater that you enjoy the most and just take it all in. And for me, it's like it's always been the perfect getaway for my fast paced life with sports and everything else that goes on in my life. Like it gets those are the perfect 2 to 3, maybe even 4 hours where I put my phone away. I'm just locked into whatever side of screen I'm looking at. I'm in the comfort of my seat and I'm just chilling. So I think it's a great way for people to kind of learn about themselves too. What do you like? Like I'll go see any movie. I've maybe seen every action movie that's come out. Let me go check out this rom com just because I have the
Yeah.
membership. Why not? It doesn't hurt my pocket. So
Yeah.
let me just go. And you kind of like, it gives you a great opportunity to learn about yourself, who you like, actors, actresses, even different directors, producers. And so it's really fun. I enjoy watching the movies all the time. Like I'll see as much as I can given whatever time I'm allowed, when I'm not working. Um, but it's really cool. I encourage everybody to go to the movies more often. And especially, if you can get the movie membership, whether that's with AMC, Regal, or any local theater, do it because it's a great way to learn about yourself and just kind of get away from the world when you can.
Shout out AMC. Please sponsor me.
Yeah,
You probably saw me go on my phone quick. I got 2024 list of movies with check marks as I make my way along, and I've
that's
missed a
cool. That's
I've
really
missed
cool.
a I can share with you if you want, but I've missed a
Yeah.
couple.
Mm,
Miles, real quick, just first ones that come to mind. Top three
mm,
movies this year so far, and then what's the
mm.
next one you're most anticipated to go see? And I can also give mine.
Top three this year so far. I'm trying to think.
I
Okay,
gotta pull out the letterbox quick.
I just went to see Planet of the Apes, so that was really good. I'm looking forward to see Bad Boys. I think I'm going to see that this week.
I saw that.
Um,
I loved it.
I enjoyed Challengers. I didn't think I would enjoy it, but going into it, that's like I said, it's one of those things where I end up learning to like that type of genre and just the movie in general. So Challengers was really fun. What else has come out this year?
You're forgetting a
I was
big
th-
one, dude.
I know I feel like I'm blanking right now because I'm in and out of movies. I gotta look at the
All right,
the
it's
AMC
got
app.
it sounds just like dude, but take out one of the
Oh
D's
yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Oh yeah. I don't know why. I don't know why I thought that was like November. Yeah, yeah. Dune was amazing. So yeah, I'll look at those three: Challengers, Dune, Planet of the Apes, and looking forward most to Bad Boys sometime this week. I'm gonna try to go see that. Uh, yeah, I believe those are probably my top three that I've enjoyed so far this year.
You got one that you're most anticipated for rest of the year?
Rest of the year, what else is coming out this year?
If you're an MCU guy,
Oh, Deadpool for sure.
yeah,
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 yeah, for sure.
yeah. I'm a big MCU guy. So honestly, any type of comics, partially because my dad grew up on that type of stuff. He had comic books all over the place growing up. So he got me into all the type of DC and Marvel stuff. So now seeing that come to fruition on TV, yeah,
I
next year
got
that's gonna be a
this
big movie.
this right here, Superman. Let's see.
Yeah,
We're about I'm about to nerd out for you real quick. I got Secret Wars. I
yeah,
got more Secret Wars. Batman. The audio is definitely so messed up. Fantastic Four.
oh yeah,
I'm your guy for this stuff. I like this stuff just
yeah,
as much as sports, but
yeah. It's
Secret
honestly,
Wars.
yeah, yeah. Couple years we're going. You know, God willing, I'm still there. I'm gonna be there front row. And then
I'm seated. I'm seated.
I'm also a big I get the collectibles a lot, like the buckets. So I have
Mm.
like a big collection in the kitchen just full of like different buckets that I've collected over the years from going to the movies and stuff. So
Oh, that's
that's always the
sick,
fun
dude.
part too that I like to get. That's why like, I try to see stuff on the release day or even those Thursdays before everybody crashes in and like takes the buckets and stuff. So
Hmm.
those
Give me
that's
that.
always fun too. Yeah.
Well, I'll say my top three is Dune is number one.
Mm,
Challenger's super close number two. I love tennis. So
yeah.
a little bit of bias. And then I have Monkey Man at three, but I could easily be convinced to put Kingdom there. I love
Mm,
the Planet of the Apes trilogy. It might be my favorite trilogy. Kingdom,
mm,
I definitely think it was a bit of a step down, but I have a bit of a
mm,
bias towards those movies. Um,
mm.
Last question. Actually,
Yeah.
two. If you give me an answer quickly here,
Gotcha.
anyone can play you in a movie about yourself.
Will anyone play me?
Why would it
I
be
would
Noah
I would
Powell?
I would say honestly, my friend Jabari Banks. He's the
Oh, okay.
current guy playing Will Smith. He's a lifelong friend of mine, growing up back home in the DC area. Uh, kind of similar looking in some sense, but I would say him. Just I think he would encapsulate because he knows me one of the best in my life. So Jabari Banks, he's obviously people know him for playing Will Smith right now in the Bel Air
Oh,
spinoff show.
wow.
But yeah, I would have him if I could pick anybody to act as me and do a biopic. It would definitely be Jabari Banks.
All right, guys. Well, keep an eye out for Jabari Banks for the Miles Washington biopic. Miles, last question I got for you today. You've come a long way. You've done a lot of different things from West Virginia to the NBA, different aspects of the NBA. What does the future look like for you? Where do you want to end up down the line?
For me, I hope to one day be a head coach for the NBA, an NBA team. That's been, my ultimate goal. Like I would say since I was about a junior in college, once, like I said, Coach Harrison, as I mentioned earlier, helped me decide between obviously medicine and basketball, and I chose the basketball route. So that's my ultimate goal. One of my like goals that's not too crazy, but if it's there, I'm grateful for is hopefully be the youngest head coach in the NBA, which I think right now the record's like 33 in like 8 months. So
Do
I
you know
have
who it
about
is?
uh it was this one guy, I forget his name. He coached for I think the Jazz a few years back or the Bucks. It was one or two. I
Was
forget.
it Will Hardy?
No, it wasn't Will Hardy. It was
Yeah,
it was
because he's
another guy.
young.
He was a guy. He was coaching like fresh out of like college, like young
Oh,
on the
wow.
NBA staff, and then spent obviously years and years as an assistant. But I know Joe Mazzulla is the youngest right now.
Mhm.
Obviously former West Virginia guard and stuff.
Yeah, there you go.
Obviously, but yeah, I would say that's one of my like soft goals. It's not the end of the world. Obviously, that doesn't happen, but it's one that like it keeps me pushing to like learn the game as much as I can and be around as much. So that one kind of keeps me active and focused. But yeah, ultimately just be a head coach in the league, and hopefully historic programs like the New York Knicks, Los Angeles Lakers, who I grew up as my favorite team since I was a big Kobe Bryant fan and everything like that. So those probably the two teams, and then obviously back home would be cool back in DC. So I don't think those are probably the three story organizations that I would like to be the face of, but obviously any opportunity is great, and to grow as a person and then push my career forward. So that's the end goal ultimately.
Well, Joe Mazzulla, Miles is on your ass right now, so you better watch out. But Miles, thanks for coming on, man. I appreciate it. We had a really good conversation about a lot of different stuff. Got on the movie stuff, which I'm glad we touched on. That was fun.
Yeah,
But good luck with everything with the Knicks. And I think you're on the right track to accomplishing all those goals, man. Thanks for coming on. I
appreciate it.
appreciate it.
No problem. Anytime. Look forward to talking soon.